Ayaan had always believed that life was supposed to follow a straight line: study hard, get a job, support his family, and someday build the life he dreamed of. But reality had painted a completely different picture. Instead of progress, he found himself stumbling between failures. The pressure he carried felt like a mountain tied to his chest. Every breath felt heavier than the last. And no matter how many times he tried to get up, life pushed him back down harder. One cold evening, he climbed to the rooftop of his apartment building, seeking a moment of peace. But his mind refused to settle. The sunset sprawled across the sky in orange and red, beautiful enough to comfort anyone, but not him. His thoughts were too loud. His failures too fresh. His regrets too sharp. His heart felt like a room filled with broken glass, and every step he took inside himself hurt. He whispered as if confessing to the wind, "How do I escape my own mind?" The wind didn't answer. The world didn't pause. But something inside him felt like it was reaching out for help. Later that night, he wandered through the quiet city. The roads were nearly empty, and shops were closing one by one. That's when he noticed the dim light glowing inside an old dojo he had walked past for years but never entered. The wooden sign above the door simply read, "Stillness." Curiosity, or desperation, pulled him inside. There, seated on the wooden floor, was an elderly master with white hair tied back in a simple knot. His eyes were closed, hands resting gently on his knees, breathing slowly, as if the world around him didn't exist. Without opening his eyes, the master said, "Your heart is very loud tonight." Ayaan froze. He hadn't spoken. He hadn't even stepped loudly. How could the old man know? He swallowed. "How did you?" The master opened his eyes and smiled warmly. "Because only a heart drowning in noise seeks a place of silence." Those words hit Ayaan harder than any advice he had ever received. For the first time in months, he felt seen, truly seen. The master invited him to sit. He poured tea into a small clay cup until it reached the brim. But then, he kept pouring. The hot tea spilled over, dripping onto the tray. Ayaan gasped. "It's overflowing." The master nodded calmly. "Just like your mind." Ayaan blinked, confused. "My mind? You cannot fill a cup that is already full," the master said softly. "Your mind is filled with fear, regret, anger, failure, and noise. And you keep trying to add solutions, hope, and peace on top of it. But there is no space. If you want peace, you must first empty the mind." Ayaan stared at the overflowing cup, and for the first time, the metaphor sank deep into his heart. The next night, Ayaan returned. And the next. And the next. The master's lessons were simple but impossible at first. Sit. Breathe. Let the thoughts pass. But Ayaan's mind didn't obey. Every time he closed his eyes, memories rushed in: his father's disappointed face, the job rejection, the fights in his past relationship, the loneliness he kept hiding. Some nights he felt anger rising like fire in his chest. Other nights he broke down crying. He felt shame for not being able to control his thoughts. "I can't do it," he whispered one night, trembling. The master shook his head. "You can. You simply do not know how to let go. That is what we will learn." Slowly, painfully, Ayaan began confronting the storm inside him. Every time his mind spiraled, the master reminded him, "Let the thought come. Let it leave. You are not your thoughts." One evening, after a particularly emotional session, the master brought Ayaan to an old dusty mirror hanging inside the dojo. The glass was cracked, its edges worn. "Look," the master said. Ayaan stared at his reflection, his tired eyes, his unshaven face, the sadness he always hid. "What do you see?" the master asked. "A broken man," Ayaan said with a shaky voice. The master placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "No. You see someone who carries broken thoughts. Your heart is not broken, only full." Ayaan felt something warm stir inside him. Maybe he wasn't as damaged as he believed. One early morning, the master decided to take Ayaan to a hill just outside the city. The sky was still pale, half asleep, and the world felt untouched. They sat on the grass, letting the cold wind brush past them. "Listen," the master whispered. Ayaan frowned. "To what?" "To the silence." At first, Ayaan heard nothing. Then, slowly, he began to notice everything: the rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, the steady rhythm of his own breath. And somewhere in that stillness, he felt a shift inside him. "That emptiness you fear," the master said, "is not emptiness. It is space. Space for healing. Space for peace. Space for new beginnings. For the first time in years, Ayaan felt his chest relax, not because his problems were gone, but because they no longer held the same power. That evening, Ayaan arrived at the dojo, but the master was nowhere to be seen. Only a small handwritten note lay on the floor. Tonight is the real test. Ayaan sat alone. No guidance. No voice telling him what to do. Just him and his own mind. Thoughts came, as they always did. Fear, regret, pain. But instead of fighting them, he let them move through him like passing clouds. He breathed. He let go. He allowed silence to enter the spaces he had once filled with chaos. Minutes felt like hours, and hours felt like moments. When he finally opened his eyes, he felt lighter, not empty, but clear. The next morning, the master returned and saw Ayaan sitting calmly with a quiet smile. "You have learned," he said. Ayaan nodded. "I didn't erase the past, I just stopped living inside it." The master smiled proudly. When the mind empties its pain, the heart begins to bloom. Weeks later, standing on the same rooftop where he once felt utterly lost, Ayaan watched the sunset. But this time, it didn't feel like the world was fading. It felt like the world was beginning again. His problems still existed. Life wasn't magically perfect. But his mind, once a battlefield, was now a calm river. He realized something important. Peace doesn't come when life becomes easy. Peace comes when the mind learns to let go. He whispered softly into the wind, "I am free now." For the first time, the world felt open, warm, possible. He had emptied his mind. And life, finally had space to enter.